House in Baltimore, and I was watching a little bit of spring training baseball over the weekend. I watched a little bit of hockey over the weekend, and lo and behold, on a Sunday afternoon, the Tiger Woods story gripped me, as well as March Madness and brackets. A perfect guest to join us here on the eve of golf season, and as we get up on March Madness, we're the local UMBC Retrievers that he has been courtside with many times this year. Joins us. We welcome Robert Canady back on from Compass Point Golf Course down in Pasadena, and our pal at Buckets and Birds out on Twitter, and our local college insider. Boy, two different directions to go with you right now with the Tiger Woods story, which I know is very near and dear to your heart, as well as UMBC and the little engine that could have Ryan Odom, correct?
Absolutely, Nestor. Yeah, I can pretty much tell you the number of times in the past where I was watching basketball on the afternoon of Selection Sunday. Golf, on the Selection Sunday for basketball, and it was probably zero up until this weekend.
And they sort of collided right around 6 o'clock when the picks were coming, and, Tiger was sort of working maybe a couple of miracle shots on the back nine, right?
They absolutely did. I had the DVR going on both channels and wondering which one to watch, So, it kept me off social media because nothing like, trying to plan your DVRing and then logging on to Twitter to see a result or something. So, no, it was a great Sunday afternoon as far as, watching Tiger in the hunt. I mean, whether you're a Tiger fan or not, there's no denying that when he is playing, interest is up. The ratings from Saturday that I just read about are incredible. They were up 171% over last year. It's the highest third-round rating they've had in 6 or 7 years. So yeah, it was definitely compelling to watch. And then, who knew what was coming with the selection show, with going to the, TNT and the new presentation they did, which I absolutely hated.
Dude, it's unwatchable. Can we, let's move off of golf to basketball, and let's get square with this. By the way, Robert Canady is our dear friend and guest, and we're going to get into this. I'm going to tell everybody to follow you at Buckets and Birds out on Twitter, where he does half golf and half local college basketball, which is perfect for us here. The half that's college basketball, boy, this selection thing stinks, doesn't it? I don't know how they're ever going to get it right. I don't know why 68 became the number instead of 64. I'm still trying to figure out all of that. I'm glad UMBC's in. It's a great little story here, but boy, they got to find a better way to do this. I think it's goofy.
Yeah, it is. The great thing about it is, we do have the playoff, which for years and years the football said, we need the playoff like basketball does, and basketball's been ahead of that for years. So, whether it started out as 16 to 32 to 64, then the 68, they've been tweaking it. There's talk of, expanding it, to 96 or so, although that's died down a little bit the last couple of years. The biggest complaint to me is the tweaks they always seem to make. And, me, I'm a small college mid-major type guy. That's what I've always followed. I enjoy the big games and everything as well, but it's really, really weighted against the mid-majors. Take the UMBC Vermont game. Vermont, you can't tell me Vermont, who had a phenomenal regular season, and everyone thought, was just going to be a matter of, formality to win that championship game and get a bid. You can't tell me that, they're not as good as some of these, 7, 8, 9, 10 seeds that are going in from the 6th, 7th, 8th place.
The Oklahoma types is what you're talking. The teams that everybody's a little bit either outraged or upset. And look, outrage is the word of the day. And certainly we've been getting outraged about the bubble teams for 30 years. In the big picture, most of them aren't any good anyway. And you're splitting hairs. And usually the way that goes is you give the nod to the bigger team for the bigger conference. That's just the way it works, and that's the way the money crumbles, is the way I would see it with the NCAA.
Right, it does. I understand, Syracuse, let's just use them because they, by all accounts, were the last team in. They're in a big market, they're in a big conference, and, probably 90% of the country are going to say that they want to see a name that they recognize. Everyone, knows of Syracuse, even the West Coast fans, know Jim Boeheim in Syracuse because they've won national championships. And probably everyone outside, the Northeast Mid-Atlantic has not heard of Vermont, or, couldn't pick out Vermont on a map and everything, and don't realize, if they don't follow the mid-majors and the smaller conferences, that they are a good team. And so I get that and everything. But, for those, I guess, maybe it's, maybe I'm talking about trying to, appease the diehards and the minority of us who do follow it all season long and hate to see a good season like that go by the wayside, just like
Middle Tennessee and St. Mary's also were talking about that, and that this new quadrant system that they have is weighted to sort of screw the mid-major teams. And, I can't imagine in a system where all the money flows to these major conferences that they wouldn't do everything possible that they could do to continue to screw the mid-majors and small conferences. That's the capitalistic side of how this place is going to be run, right? I mean, literally.
No, it is. You're dead on there, and it'll go on this way. And you'll hear the coaches from the mid majors, the Pat Scaries, and probably Ryan Odom in the next couple of years talk about how they can't schedule anyone. And it's kind of a catch-22 for them. The big teams won't play them, or if they do, it's definitely at their place. They want to agree to home and homes, and why should they if they don't have to? Like you said, just you talked about it. Being they hold all the cards and everything's in their favor. So
well, it's also funny, the Oklahoma States and the USCs and the Louisvilles, they get themselves onto the bubble, and the league says, the confederation, the monarchy, whatever the hell it is that picks these things, and I see, they always roll out some 70-year-old white guy that has been around some athletic conference in Creighton, and he's going to sit there and explain it all to you. But how about, like, the FBI's investigating those programs? We'd rather not have them involved in the tournament this week. That would be a fine explanation to me. Have you noticed that the feds are checking them out? We don't really want them advancing to the Sweet 16, so we'll just leave them out this year. See you later, Mike Boynton. Nighty night.
Yeah, and the chairman Rasmussen, I think, was asked about that, whether that played into it. I loved his answer was that never came up once in the meeting room, and I sent a tweet out that got some recognition. I said, yeah, maybe not the meeting room, but you can't tell me about the dark hallways, the bars, and the other dark corners of the hotel that it wasn't discussed. Absolutely. So, but yeah, that is the system that it's under. And so, what? We can bitch about it on Monday, but, come Tuesday night and Thursday when it really kicks off, we'll be, it'll all be behind us, and we'll be, looking for the upsets and hoping our brackets don't get busted, by 3 o'clock on Thursday afternoon.
Well, I have to tell you, I look up and see Xavier as a 1 seed, and I can't begin to tell you, going back to the 80s, how many times Xavier has screwed my brackets up. So year after year, I used to be very bullish on Xavier the first 15 years of my radio career. Since the century turned, seeing them as a 1 seed, kind of like Gonzaga back in the day, or I remember the days of DePaul. I mean, you're old like me, Rob, you remember those Mark Aguirre days and whatnot back in the day. He is Robert Canady. He is Buckets and Birds out on Twitter. You can follow him there, as well as that at Compass Point, where the weather is clearing up. I see you've got your range shot now of your bikini wax greens down there in Pasadena out on the front of your Twitter. But I know you're all worked up about the UMBC thing. You probably have some thoughts on the Towson thing and the disappointment of a season wayward by Juan Dixon with our partners at Coppin State. Loyola, not good enough. Certainly Morgan State. And the MEAC and giving a run here, but UMBC's the story this week, as they should be. Give me a little background on where you are. I mean, I go back to Tom Sullivan, and I go back to 10, 12 years ago when they made their run and won that big game down there at the RAC, and now they've moved into the big building. This is an exciting time for Catonsville, and I think for the campus, for the soccer program at Pete Caringi, for the lacrosse programs there, for everything they're trying to build, getting this team to play the number 1 team in the country down in Charlotte late at night on Friday night. The beer will be... I'm looking for like an opportunity. I'm supposed to be at the Caps game Friday night, so I might be watching that on my tablet, sadly, because I have some obligations with the Caps on Friday night. But it is a very, very exciting week around here with UMBC.
Oh, it is. It's, from the moment they won there on Saturday, the championship game, it's, I'm sure it's been chaos on campus. I was going to try to make it out to the watch party they had there at campus on Sunday, but just wasn't able to do it. But it looked, saw the shots on the cut-ins like they did, and it looked like a great crowd.
I felt like I was there to some degree because I knew it was going to be really crowded and rowdy. I went to the one 10 years ago. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think back to, I think it was 2008 when the last time they were in it, and they played Georgetown, I think, out in the western region. I think that may have been a year. I could be off a year or two, but I think that's the year where we had like 4 local teams, and they all got sent out west and everything. I think Maryland maybe got sent out west that year as well. But, so it's been a long time coming for him. Ryan Odom in his second year there, back-to-back 20-plus win seasons, the new building. They've won, I think, 20 games once or twice in the previous 16 seasons. He's really turned the program around. Good group of seniors there. I love where they're playing. Time slot in the thing Friday night. That's great. Yeah, it is a little late, 9:30, but it'll be going against the number one seed. It'll be probably start off as one of the prime late night games that most of the country will get to see. So definitely going to be some exposure for them that you just can't buy that type of exposure for kids across the country. You're going to see UMBC and they're going to see Jarris Lyles and KJ Moore, who we've talked about all year. They're going to see this. I saw that over the weekend. He's 133 pounds, the lightest player in Division I, NCAA, actually. And so they're going to see kids like him can play Division I.
I never thought about what he weighs. You know what I mean? Like I know it feels like you could fit him in your pocket, but and when he's out there, and really, the weird part is I've sat courtside with you several times this year and watched him play down at the new gym. My wife and I were courtside 2 weeks ago watching that game, and on TV, he looks even smaller. I don't know what it is, but when you see him from that angle, that watching the Vermont game on Saturday morning, it's like it's very obvious how small he is all of a sudden.
It really is, especially when you see them. You think things like when they huddle up, during timeouts or things like that at the free throw line. It really shows how small he is, and but boy, I mean,
big heart.
One of the toughest players, as they'd say, pound for pound in the probably Division I. I mean, he's just a pest defensively. It's going to be a good matchup. Two good. I mean, yes, 1-16. Okay, I'm not going to get crazy here, but it's
Well, you know what you want to have happen is that 11 o'clock on Friday night, it's a 6-point game, or something that you could look up with 12 minutes left to go and say, they're in the game and they made this happen, that it's not 38-12 at 10:25, right?
Right, that they don't get cut away from with 7 minutes to go in the first half. Exactly. Two good defensive teams. Virginia definitely the best defensive team in the country. UMBC, one of the best defensive teams in their conference and mid-majors. So it probably won't be a high-scoring affair. UMBC lives and dies by the three, and that's usually the type of thing that the smaller teams have a chance for in the tournament if they're able to get hot and hit 14 or 15 three-pointers in a game. They can pull off these upsets. Probably won't happen against Virginia, but like you said, if they show themselves well and take it as a close game into the second half, it'll be. I mean, it's already a successful season making the tournament. I mean, to compare them to Towson, let's say you mentioned them a few minutes ago, who has had tons of regular season success over the last 7 years. Since Pat Scarry's been there, but just hasn't been able to get it done in their conference tournament.
And UMBC hasn't really had that signature win that, like, Towson beat Louisville many years ago, right? Towson would get a George Mason into their gym or whatever. You don't look back at UMBC and say they went on the road and beat Oklahoma State back in October, November. There's not that on their resume.
No, there's not. They played both Arizona and SMU earlier in the season. They got beat, fairly easily by both. They played Maryland earlier this year. I was down at that game, and they were actually leading at halftime by about 8 or 10. And honestly, it could have been 15 or 17 and made for a whole different second half if not for some missed free throws and other shots. And and then Maryland took over in the second half and everything. So no, they are lacking that. Where you're right, Towson has beaten the Temples and the Masons and Oregon State one year. Lots of good regular season success. And granted, the CAA is a stronger conference top to bottom than the American East, so it is tougher when you get into that CAA. And there's 5 or 6 teams that can literally win it. Charleston was a favorite this year and won it, but Northeastern, William and Mary, perennially are very strong in there. So, UMBC had a better chance to get to the final game, being the number 2 seed. They did, and pulled off the big upset, having lost to Vermont 23 straight times. So that that just shows maybe there's another team in that conference to be reckoned with going forward. they will lose a lot in these three seniors, but they've got some really good freshmen and a couple transfers sitting out. So I'm sure they'll be back and everything next year. But this year's not done yet. They still have at least one more game to go.
He is Buckets and Birds out on Twitter and down at Compass Point Golf where he's doing it. He's Robert Canady, our frequent visitor here, and certainly a great visit here to be talking some golf as well as some college basketball. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Cole Roofing. We all felt that March wind blowing in, and some of the commercial roofs in the area have had the tops blown off. Because the moisture hasn't come in yet, you may have damage you don't even know about. Don't put a goof up on your roof. Call our friends at Cole Roofing. Find them out at ColeRoofing.com. And Billy Cole's going to be joining us this week, ColeRoofing.com. Howard Bank has a relentless commitment to be the best at everything they do. Branches now throughout Baltimore and Maryland. You're going to be hearing me talk more about what they're doing. Both Cole Roofing and Howard Bank sponsoring our Thursday Be More Positive charity community outreach segments. We chatted with Michelle Jackman. Anthony, I still call her Michelle Jackman from the National Kidney Foundation. Learned a lot about kidneys last week. All of that is up in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day. Also on our YouTube WNSTV channel, as well as our Facebook Live. And you can email me for more details on that anytime, nasty@WNST.net. Also going to tell you about Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. The tasty coffee in the mornings, the best fried chicken in the land, and, of course, the Rofo app, where you add up the points when you're pumping your gas, and you get some free fried chicken, some free Western fries, as well as other goodies. It's Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Robert Canady joining us here. Last thing for you on the UMBC thing is, I guess, Jairus Lyles and where he came from and the buildup of this program. We're going to talk to Ryan Odom about this week. Obviously, John Feinstein, who's been courtside all year, is going to chat with us. The legend of UMBC runs deep here, but the whole notion of Ryan Odom coming in from a smaller school, the son of a legendary Wake Forest coach, and Dave Odom, and Coach Tim Duncan, and Childress and all those great players, and seeing the preseason thoughts on them and where they are. This week is sort of the culmination of all of that, but you got to get a special kid, right? And in the case of Jairus Lyles, he sort of fell into the lap, and there's this great story of his relationship with a good doctor down there at UMBC and why he would stick around. And I got to tell you, my wife was on the couch with 8, 7, 6, 5, and he's dribbling out of the top of the perimeter, and she's yelling 4, shoot, shoot, shoot. And you will not find a more ice in your veins, once-in-a-lifetime shot than that shot, right? I mean, it really was something to behold. It wasn't just the fact that they won, that they slayed the giant, that they had never beaten up in Vermont, but this kid who I tweeted 20 minutes earlier, like, he's going to need to be the one to hit the shots because, dude, that's the way this works, right, Rob? That is March Madness, is you isolate your kid, and he gets that shot when you need it, and it either goes in and you go crazy or it doesn't, and it's a long bus ride home from Burlington, Vermont.
Or actually overtime in this case it would have been.
Sure.
But yeah, you don't know what would have happened in overtime. But, yeah, it's, it was a classic, case of, here, hold my beer. And I love the fact that they said Ryan Odom had a play called, and he looked over and waved it off and said, no, I got this. And, that's what you want. You want a chance to win with the best player on your team, the best player, in recent history of the team, since Jay Green, we talked about earlier in the year, with the chance to, make the shot to send you to the tournament. I mean, you can't ask for any more than that. I saw where he said he practices that shot every day in practice afterwards, the dribbling, like 3 or 4 dribbles to get in rhythm and go up for it. And, he had missed a couple shots coming down the stretch and, but there's, Ryan Odom has told us more than several times throughout the season that he hasn't had a player, that he's coached that is smarter with shot selection than Jairus, in his career. And he said that's one of his strengths, that he rarely takes bad shots. And, that was certainly, he wasn't going to let anyone else take it. No offense to anyone else on that team. Jordan Grant hit a good big 3-pointer. In the corner earlier, KJ hit a couple, nice little shots. But
there's definitely guys there he can trust. I mean, they're a good team, man. I mean, we've seen them mature throughout the course of the year, and we go back to when they were getting beat by Towson, 3.5 months ago now. But they've become that team that can go to Vermont and win, and a team that fed off the momentum of their new building. And, this the whole thing feels good to me. And just the fact that they're playing Virginia, and if they lose by 30, so what? But I don't think they're going to lose by 30. And I think with a kid like Lyles on the court, you would look and say, if that kid can hit some threes early and keep them in, they can make their mark and be remembered on Friday night. And to your point, 16 beating 1, that ain't ever happened. This is when I like to use my Smokey and the Bandit line, Robert, where I say, it ain't ever happened because we ain't never done it, right? So, part of that will be the advice I'll give to Coach Odom and to all those kids that are going down to Charlotte to slay the Giant on Friday night. But as I tweeted right after it happened, I expected them to play Virginia. I expected them to play Villanova in Pittsburgh. I expected them to be local, be somewhere where you'd have to get in the car and drive 4 or 5 hours. And I expected them to be a 16 seed, and so do they. And they know what they're up against, but I wouldn't say that they're going into a gunfight with a knife. I wouldn't say that.
No, absolutely not. And it's, two things there. I don't know if we touched on, you ran down Ryan's coaching career, and I think you mentioned, maybe you didn't, but, it shouldn't be lost. He was an assistant there at Virginia in his early days, on the Ralph Sampson team. So it's kind of full circle for him, going back to coaching against the team, where he, spent some of his younger days. And, you're absolutely right as far as the location goes. 16 and playing close to home, where the fans have a chance to, go see them and make the 5 or 6 hour drive down versus a 15 and being shipped out west,
although San Diego's nice this time of year. San Diego's nice now. Come on now. They got golf out there, Rob. You know that.
That's right. If I could have, found the time in the airfare to go to San Diego, that wouldn't have been so bad either.
I have a business visa card.
Well, but yeah, so I think it's a great draw for them. Maryland against Virginia, the close to home with a reasonable drive, and the number 1 seed, and like you said, just kind of someone's going to be the first 16 to beat a 1. So why not us? It seems to be the cry a lot of teams, pick up on these days. Why not us? So I'm sure that's going to be said in the locker room at least a few times this week.
Buckets and Birds, the way to find Robert Canady, and he's down at Compass Point Golf Course doing it down there as well, and getting ready for UMBC, getting ready for brackets. You got your brackets, I got my brackets, but certainly on a Sunday afternoon for a guy like you who loves golf and a guy like me that dislikes Tiger Woods, it was a lovely sort of kickoff to the golf season, and a little extra interesting intrigue and drama to now insert his name in with the McIlroys and all the other usual suspects that we're going to start to hear about as we hear the tweet of the birds and smell the azaleas and the bikini wax greens at Augusta and all that stuff. And first off, plug Compass Point as to what's going on with you down there. But certainly when Tiger Woods is active on a Sunday, it's good for Compass Point too, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely good for golf, which therefore is good for us. Especially as we head into this, supposedly warmer weather. At least we're not getting hammered with snow like the New England's going to get again this week. But Masters less than a month away, so him playing well and going into that as one of the favorites is definitely good for golf, and therefore all the courses it piques the interest. We had our long promoted Irish Open this past Saturday as well, and it was decent weather for that.
Let me guess, it was green.
It was, green beer. Grass wasn't completely green by yet, but we had a lot of other green stuff going on. Well,
if you dump green beer on the course, it makes the grass greener, right?
Yeah, I'm sure the superintendent wouldn't be thrilled with that. But
and why spill the beer, right? I mean, why waste it? We don't want to do that.
Why waste a good beer? Absolutely. But 138 players out for that. We had a chance. We had $1 million shootout where one player got chance had his name pulled to take a shot from 165 yards for $1 million, and as you would probably expect, he came up woefully short. So, it was fun for a moment, with him having the club in his hand, thinking, hey, I've got one swing, and magic might be able to.
Hey, man, I'm singing the Bare Naked Lady song right now. If I had $1 million,
So we'll be doing stuff like that throughout the season. We'll have some more events that we sponsor, but. A lot of charity events throughout the year that people can find out on our Facebook page at Compass Point or our website, compasspointgolf.com. All the information's there. contact me if they want to have their own outing, their own charity fundraiser, their own corporate event. My contact information's there, and we'd absolutely be able to set it up.
Tiger back 9, Augusta 3-4 weeks from now. 3 weeks from now, right? Yeah, 3.5 weeks from now. Thoughts? No thoughts?
Could happen. I wouldn't bet against it. I think he finished 4th there 3 or 4 years ago when he was still going through some of these things. And
dude, he's Tiger freaking Woods, right? I mean, why would we bet against him at this point? People get down on me about it? I'm like, I'm not saying it's bad for golf. I think it's bad for me on Sunday because it's going to suck up a couple of my Sundays when he's on the leaderboard because I love to watch him lose. It's just I've made a career doing it. Why give up now?
Right. Yeah, and he's but he's watching him play. He's playing pain-free, apparently. You don't see him wince. You don't see any limps or anything like that.
Steroids. Steroids.
Well, you never say never, right?
I wonder if it's the clear or the cream. Hey, man, take care of the bikini wax greens down there. We're going to get you some better weather, but in the meantime, we got basketball. We got a local team in, right? I mean, you and I have been crying the blues all year that maybe somehow, some way, there wouldn't be a local representative. At least we got a little dog in the hunt, literally and figuratively, on Friday night as UMBC tries to slay the Who's of Virginia. I've been hating on Virginia forever, and you said 2 words to me a few minutes ago, Ralph and Sampson, and gave the Odom family tree and all that stuff. Ralph Sampson, over the weekend, Saturday morning, I opened my LinkedIn. Ralph Sampson linked to me on LinkedIn and asked me to accept his business partnership on LinkedIn. And I thought, man, my dad would think that's the greatest thing ever, that Ralph Sampson wanted to link to.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that mention that you mentioned that. That is fantastic. And
well, he sat in the studio. I mean, he sat, and even sitting, he's 6'7", you know what I mean, in the studio. But he came to the studio as a lovely man about 15 years ago, sat in our studios promoting, I don't know, something basketball, maybe I don't remember what it was, but one of the heroes of my childhood. Literally, when I think of the Len Elmores and the Ralph Sampsons and the Jeff Lamps and the Lee Rakers and the Terry Hollands and the Lefty Drizelles, all that stuff gets me all geeked up about filling out brackets this week.
Yeah, no, I was growing up in Dayton, Ohio, or not growing up, probably in my early 20s by then when he played, and watching that team, and he was by far the most dominant player in the game, and. You mentioned the Mark Aguirre and DePaul days. I mean, I was at the Dayton Regional the year that they lost at the buzzer, and I can vividly remember Mark Aguirre grabbing the ball as it came through the net and just running through the tunnel out of the arena with the ball. And the stories that I heard later was that he actually ran all the way back to the hotel, which is about a mile away, that the team was staying at. And after that heartbreaking defeat, and I can't remember who it was against now, but I mean,
were you at the David Robinson games back in that era? Dayton got a lot of regionals back in the day. They must have had some link to the NCAA. I don't even know why, but I remember David Robinson playing in a regional in the mid '80s there.
Yeah, I mean, most of the times I was there, it was the late '70s to early '80s, so it was right in his time frame, and they probably had the University of Dayton Arena opened in 1970, so late '70s. It was probably one of the newer state-of-the-art arenas. Nowadays, it would be laughed at. I think it's 12 or 13,000, and they don't go anywhere less than 40,000. It seems like.
All I know is regional. Rush used to play the Dayton Arena, so it must have been legitimate back in the day.
Oh, it was. I tell you what, it was. From a small kid growing up in Dayton, Ohio, it might as well have been Madison Square Gardens and everything. It was. They played the. I was talking to a friend over the weekend. They had the high school tournaments there this week, and I remember that we would go down there, get there like 11 o'clock on a Saturday, and we'd be there till midnight almost, watching the divisions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all have their state championship games. I mean, there was no other place to be on a Saturday.
By the way, you and I screwed up, and I told Dick Girardi this, and I'm going to tell him when I have him on this week. The Palestra had, a big hootenanny over the weekend that Penn won. My buddy Micah Buckdahl, who's been on with me, and I went to the Super Bowl, saw him with the former Caps PR director. He's putting pictures of him and his kid up at the Palestra over the weekend, and I'm like, am I just never going to get to the Palestra? I mean, I really have to get this organized with people like you and Girardi and some of my other Philadelphia goons up there to take me to the Palestra.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of or not a little bit. I saw most of the Harvard Penn game yesterday on Sunday, and that was a great game in itself. And, I was thinking, I said, I'd forgotten that they had moved, the Ivy League tournament there, I think, a year or two ago. And, even though it's Penn's home court, it's, it seems like every coach in the conference was in favor of playing it there just because of the history and the location of it and everything it means. And that would be a great, we talked about all these, we had the A-10 in D.C. this year. We had the Big Ten at Capital One last year.
I don't care about any of that. I want to go to the Palestra.
That would be worth the 2-hour drive to go see the, Ivy League tournament up there. I mean, it would be a great.
Grab a cheesesteak on the way out, maybe get mugged. It's Philly, right?
Exactly. And you see, again, in one of these one-bid leagues, and you saw how excited Penn was, to make it over Harvard. And, great environment. So we got to make that happen.
Yeah, I screwed that up. I mean, another lost opportunity. Robert Canady doesn't lose any opportunities out on the links down at Compass Point. You can find him at Buckets and Birds as well out on Twitter. He will be watching all things UMBC on Friday night and getting the greens together down there at Compass Point if you have a group outing or just want to go, play 18 sometime when the sun is shining. Get down to Pasadena. You can learn more out at Compass Point Golf. You can also learn more about our friends at Freedmont Mortgage out at our website at WNST.net. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need Freedmont's education online and, of course, sponsoring our Swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry on March 29th with head coach Barry Trotz of the Washington Capitals. Big day there. You got opening day in the afternoon. We're going to be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry, and for There Goes My Hero that evening and chatting Caps playoff previews. And the Caps had a rough trip out on the West Coast and finally got one against San Jose. Much like the UMBC's issues with Vermont, the Caps had the same issues with San Jose. So a lot of demons and dragons being slayed over the weekend as well around here. King Discount Liquors is there to take care of your thirst, I should say. Lottery beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Get to Rosedale out on Pulaski Highway. Give the King a ring. Tell Paul King we sent you out there for that as well. The buyatoyota.com audio vault's there for anything that you miss here. Been doing some rock and roll interviews with John Karabi earlier in the week. We got some cool stuff coming up later on in the week as well. Had a great chat with Ed O'Bannon about his book, Court Justice and the NCAA. Lots of good stuff out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. You can always download the TuneIn radio app and listen to us 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. Nasty at WNST.net finds me as well. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, guaranteed. And there's always one right around the corner from you. It delivers with our morning newspaper, and of course, that includes the Maryland Jockey Club entries for Laurel each and every week now, new to our morning newspaper, as well as on the front of our website at WNST.net. Just click on the little Laurel tab there, and you can find out about the racing and cure your winter blues. We got the Preakness coming up at it. Hi-ho, Pimlico. Man, we're 2 months out on that now, right? Rock and roll, bands. Speaking of thirst, they have that Unlimited Cup out there that is very, very popular these days. So very happy to be partnering with the Maryland Jockey Club here this year with WNST to promote the racing out at the racetrack. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis is going to be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home and getting you ready for the weekend and March Madness as well. Coons Ford and the SSV on WNST. And at some point, we'll have some breaking news on the NFL free agency that's hitting this week. So busy time around. A lot of sports going on, but we're mixing up our conversation as well as our Be More Positive series, all brought to you by Howard Bank and Cole Roofing. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.